pedophile who raped a 10-year-old boy, a hitman who murdered a pregnant woman, a violent sex predator who attacked elderly women in their home. So these are some of the people right now free, walking our streets after that landmark High Court ruling releasing 81 detainees.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that was today's Karl Stefanovic in a moral panic over the High Court order that ended indefinite detention of non-citizens and initially allowed around 80 of them to walk free. And while the Immigration Minister says several are convicted murderers or sex offenders, it appears that most are not. But that did not stop headlines from tagging them all as deadly, dangerous and out to get you.
Detainee monsters on the loose.
Violent offenders set free.
Evil minds let loose.
Sex fiends, killers on the streets.
And on Talkback Radio, the spectre of migrant sex creeps roaming the streets was also causing alarm.
Murderers, rapists, others just criminals of all sorts. Why have we let them out amongst our society? What were those faceless High Court judges thinking?
The exact makeup of this group is still unclear, but human rights lawyers tell us some will have committed no crime at all and simply had their visas cancelled. And as terror expert Greg Barton explained to Karl right at the start,
most of the cases are people who've done a crime, served their time, but rather than being released because they're not citizens, they're detained so that they can be deported. Turns out they can't be deported. So the High Court said, well, you can't add, perhaps years and years of a sentence to somebody as a government by extended detention when they've served their time.
And Samarthi Verma from the Human Rights Law Centre was making the same point on the drum 2 days later.
People are convicted of crimes, serious crimes, every day. They serve their time and they're released into the community every single day.
But all that was lost amid the media and political outrage, as members of the government were lined up day after day to field questions from disgusted breakfast hosts.
How are you going to keep Australians safe?
It makes me absolutely sick to the stomach to imagine these kind of people on our streets.
Still doesn't solve the problem, though, of murderers and pedophiles out on the streets, though, does it?
And on the 6 p.m. news, reporters were being dispatched to track down and confront some of those released, with Seven's Robert Avadia asking,
good to be out of detention? And what country have you come from, sir?
Australia. I grew up here.
And Nine's Charles Croucher was also out on the hunt.
In Western Sydney, this hotel promises modern rooms, 4 stars and a new life for this man.
Detention centre life is totally like a jail life. That's not good for refugee people.
Meanwhile, the Daily Mail tracked down 9 detainees to what it called a freedom hotel and complained that taxpayers were funding their accommodation, ignoring the fact that taxpayers had previously bankrolled their indefinite detention, while also admitting
the motel rents rooms as cheaply as $99 a night and has an average score of 2.5 out of 5 from TripAdvisor reviewers.
In response to pressure from the opposition, the federal government then agreed to introduce electronic monitoring and mandatory curfews, which prompted the Mail to stalk more detainees for the money shot of their ankles. And after fuming about the risks to the public, adding the weasel words,
"It is not suggested that anyone pictured is a criminal."
But by this point, the message had already hit home. Human rights lawyer David Mann says the media coverage is inflammatory and simplistic, telling Media Watch,
There has been a failure to explain important fundamental things, like how the criminal justice system in Australia operates, and that people who are convicted and released are then free.
And on top of that, he says the media debate has centred on the notion
that the punishment should continue indefinitely.
Samarthi Verma from the Human Rights Law Centre agrees, saying,
the media coverage has been fuelled by a moral panic about these people.
A panic that is out of proportion to the real risk posed. And few have even attempted to ask what we could or should do with people who are stateless or, for whatever reason, cannot be deported. As Julia Baird, host of ABC's The Drum, said a fortnight ago,
when exactly, as a society, did we decide that locking people up indefinitely was okay? Like forever, without reasonable prospect of release? It's shocking to realise how complacent we have become about this practice.
It is, indeed. But now, to bad news for the ABC, which could easily damage the reputation of the public broadcaster and make some people wonder if they should trust its journalists.
ABC slammed over Woodside protest footage.
ABC footage betrayal leads to activist arrests.
With one of those arrested telling Media Watch,
WA Police have successfully managed to force our national public broadcaster to do something no journalist should ever have to do.
Talia Stolarski was one of 3 more climate activists from Disrupt Burrup Hub charged last week over a failed protest in July outside the home of Meg O'Neill, CEO of the oil and gas company Woodside. And as you probably know, the ABC's Four Corners had a TV crew there at the time and captured it all on tape.
Please don't move!
The protest was thwarted by WA's counter-terror police, who were lying in wait, and 4 people were then charged with conspiracy to commit an indictable offence. They were carrying spray paint, water balloons and a bicycle lock and intending to graffiti the fence. At the time, Meg O'Neill told the media,
"This was not a quote-unquote harmless protest as we know it. What happened Tuesday has left me shaken, fearful and distressed."
WA Police subsequently obtained a court order requiring the ABC to hand over all Four Corners footage, including scenes that were not broadcast. And that footage has now allowed police to arrest and charge 3 more members of Disrupt Burrup Hub, with their lawyer Zara Burgess telling Media Watch,
"Having seen the police disclosure, I'm confident in saying that the ABC footage is the only evidence police have to support these charges."
And that claim is confirmed by Stolarski, who told us,
While I was being detained in handcuffs by detectives from the counter-terrorism unit, I asked them why I had been arrested now and whether it was due to the ABC's release of the Four Corners footage. They confirmed to me that it was.
Stolarski added that she's furious with the ABC. And so is Jesse Noakes, the group's media spokesman, who is one of the 4 originally charged.
We've been telling them for months, if you hand over this footage that police are demanding, the police will use it to prosecute more people. And any which way you cut it, to my mind, that's betrayal of sources who've shared their stories with Four Corners.
2 things make this particularly embarrassing for the ABC. First is that the Journalists' Union, the MEAA, and several others, urged the ABC not to comply with the court order. Second is the ABC promised it would protect its sources, with MD David Anderson telling Media Watch back in October,
"We would never produce something where protection of sources is involved. We don't reveal our sources. We've never done that."
Given what has now happened, it would appear that promise has been broken. But the ABC says not so. It says it did not hand over footage that would have identified 4 people who were given guarantees of anonymity, and no such guarantees were given to the 3 charged this week. And in a statement to Media Watch, it said,
"Claims are being made about this matter which are false and which wrongly accuse our journalists of breaking promises. Any suggestion that the ABC has disclosed or will disclose material in breach of any undertaking to a confidential source is incorrect. All material was otherwise filmed in the clear expectation that it could be made public by the ABC, including by national broadcast."
And backing up the ABC is law academic Michael Douglas, who says the broadcaster was left in a hard position, telling Media Watch,
"I understand the protesters feel betrayed by the ABC, but they should have foreseen this happening when they took the action they did on camera."
Douglas adds that the real villains are Woodside and its boss, Meg O'Neill. But Jesse Noakes from Disrupt Burrup Hub is adamant that the ABC has betrayed them.
They all agreed to participate in a Four Corners program. They never agreed, any of them, to participate in a police investigation, and that's what this has become.
So, should the ABC have handed over hours and hours of raw footage to the police, knowing that charges of conspiracy had already been brought and the footage could cause more people to be charged? In my view, the answer is no. The ABC says it had no choice, but it could have argued that it had a reasonable excuse not to comply, as it did with the footage it held onto, and if necessary, gone to court.
They could have done what I did, which is refuse to hand over my sources to WA Police, take it to trial, mount a defence, be found guilty in spite of that, and pay a small fine.
Had the ABC failed to convince the court, that fine would have been a maximum $12,000. Surely a small price to pay for upholding journalistic principles and maintaining trust. Instead, it has risked real and reputational damage, with the president of the Journalists' Union, Karen Percy, telling Media Watch,
"This kind of police overreach and the ABC's failure to push back imperils public interest journalism and breaks trust with the public."
And the MEAA House Committee at the ABC agrees, warning,
"This may jeopardise future relationships and trust between ABC journalists and their sources."
Sadly, we think that's true. And while it's possible the ABC would eventually have been forced to hand over the footage, it could at least have put up a decent fight, as the journalists involved urged it to do. But now, to a sensational offer doing the rounds on social media.
Today, Gina Rinehart, Dick Smith and Andrew Twiggy Forrest have teamed up to create an investment platform. Andrew, tell us why you decided to do this project.
Yes, it seems 3 of our wealthiest entrepreneurs have gone on to a current affair to spruik a great way in which you can make money. You want to see more? Of course you do.
We, Alison, decided to do our best to raise the standard of living of all Australians and founded an investment platform, and with the help of the best professionals and analysts will multiply their capital.
That was backed up with a pitch from Gina Rinehart and enthusiastically endorsed by another from Dick Smith.
In total, we have invested in its development about $1 billion, and such costs are fully justified. People are happy.
Yes, but the real Dick Smith is not happy with that video, and here is why.
No, it's not me. It's a complete fraud. They look at Dick Smith saying something, they believe it, and then they lose their money. It's terrible.
Terrible too for Andrew Forrest and Gina Rinehart, because as you can see, it is a deep fake video generated by AI, and it's pushing an investment scam. Because when you click through from the fake video, it takes you to a fake news story with news.com.au branding that invites you to earn a guaranteed monthly income of $30,000 or more if you hand over a minimum of $350. And you know what happens after that? You never see your money again. A few years ago, we highlighted how prominent Australians were being used in scam Facebook ads to lure people into fake Bitcoin investments. But thanks to the wonders of AI, fake videos are now the main game, as Andrew Bolt explained in March.
Who can you trust anymore? You know, I can't even trust myself, it seems, after someone posted this version of me on YouTube, helping Elon Musk scam innocent people of their cash. You know that Australia is one of the best places in the world to conduct business. This is idea of Elon Musk.
And here is Musk himself appearing in a deep fake with former Fox host Tucker Carlson.
You mean to say that anyone who decides to use crypto Twitter can earn $300 per day in passive income?
Absolutely.
That was a real interview, but the words were not. And it's the same method scammers use to create the fake current affair video. So, how did they do it? Here is the original Dick Smith interview on Sky News 2 years ago, where he's talking about migration rates. But in the scam version, his mouth and the words you hear are computer-generated. Same goes with the Gina Rinehart video, released for the 125th anniversary of her school, St Hilda's, with new words lip-synced over the top. As for Andrew Forrest, his original interview was with Sky's Ross Greenwood in April, and the subject, renewable energy, not investment opportunities. The fraudulent ACA video is one of many depicting Dick Smith on Facebook, and he was shocked and amazed when he first watched it, telling MediaWatch,
When did I do that interview? I can't remember it. And then I finally worked out that they'd somehow managed to get my voice and lip-synced it together.
And Dick Smith says Meta is failing to stamp it out.
You've got to understand, this has been going on for 3 years, and I've complained to Facebook and Instagram. They do absolutely nothing, and they know that there are criminal organisations who are organising it, but they do nothing about it.
Gina Rinehart is also taking up the fight, writing to fellow billionaire Mark Zuckerberg at Meta to demand a more comprehensive and proactive approach to prevent scams, and adding it
affects not only me, but also the journalists and networks concerned.
The letter was sent 2 weeks ago. She is yet to get a response. And in the meantime, the videos keep coming. We found multiple versions of the fake ACA video, all pushing the same bogus investment, some even featuring the Federal Treasurer. So, where does it end? Well, with better scams, more sophisticated deep fakes and smarter AI, with the media and public doomed to play catch-up. As for Meta, the company spokesperson says they're doing all they can to identify new ways to stop scammers. You can read their full statement on our website. And finally, to a confession. A few weeks ago, we ran a story about Home Affairs Department Chief Mike Pezzullo, who was sacked today, and how his name had been misspelt by the auto-generated captions on a series of Sky News online clips.
Michael Pezzullo. Michael Bazzillo. Mike Pezzullo. Pezzullo. Bazzullo. Mr. Pizzula. Mr. Persew. Mr. Bazzilla.
Comical stuff, unless you're hard of hearing and rely on the text to know what's going on. But in the programme, we pointed the finger at Sky News, whereas in fact the captions were generated by the robots at Microsoft. And it was on the trouble-plagued MSN website, not Sky News, that the clips appeared. Our apologies. That's all from us for tonight. You can read full statements from the ABC, Michael Douglas, and all 3 Disrupt Burrup Hub activists facing charges. Don't forget Media Bites on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. And join us next week at the earlier time of 8:30. Until then, goodbye.